I've never been too terribly a fan of ghost story style found footage movies, or ghost stories in general for that matter. I'm much more a fan of snuff film style found footage movies, such as the Poughkeepsie tapes. Ghost stories to me have generally just been very boring, very predictable, too reliant on the jump scare method that the Paranormal Activity series made the main element of its suspense, and overall just not for me, especially considering that I myself do not believe in the supernatural or paranormal. The two films I watched this week, the two movies in the Grave Encounters series, do not change that opinion at all. The first film, while genuinely spooky in some parts, is more often than not very mediocre and very predictable. The second film almost completely sucks, but we'll get to that later on. The first film revolves around a paranormal investigation TV show crew shacking up inside a supposedly haunted mental institution for the night, much in the same vein as Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, or whatever other ghost hunting programs are on TV at the moment. The film itself prefaces the found footage with a clip of the show's and ostensibly the movie's in-universe producer, who states that this footage is to show why the program Grave Encounters was suddenly cancelled after only 5 episodes, and that all the footage you are about to see is real. The thing that I really did like about the movie's first half is that it is something of a satire of the whole ghost hunting TV show idea. None of the characters really believe in ghosts, with our host Lance Preston and the show's psychic medium, Houston Gray, overacting to the nth degree during filming of segments for the actual show. And the whole cast, save for the token female of the group, generally shrugging off the idea of actually finding evidence of the paranormal. The only two of the main group that are generally well actors throughout the film are the aforementioned Lance Preston and the token chick Sasha Parker, both being quite believable in their roles, with the former carrying the film on his back for almost the entire running time. The other three of the group are not as good as them. They are the psychic medium, the token black guy, and the control desk tech wizard. The psychic medium is fairly bland. The tech whiz starts off as a bit of a nothing character, but drastically improves after going missing and coming back completely insane in the second half. And the black guy is the worst actor in the whole movie. Imagine a loud, annoying, angry black guy. That is who this character is. It is no coincidence that the movie drastically improves after he's been killed off. There are moments, however, where the acting from all of them is so unconvincing that it's almost funny, such as a scene where they are screaming out of a barricaded window for help. Overall, the acting is somewhat alright, with there being much better actors than others in this group, and only one of them being a genuinely terrible actor. As mentioned previously, jump scares are the bread and butter of any ghost story since the rise of the Paranormal Activity movies, which thankfully seem to be falling out of favor due to all 4 films doing the exact same fucking thing, and 4 being a complete waste of 90 minutes. And while some of them are more inventive here, the film still bases most of its suspense around jump scares. Generally, these jump scares come in the form of a ghost appearing and rearing its head to reveal a demon face, complete with another moment killer of any horror film, the loud as hell orchestra hit, or a loud slamming bang of a door, or some other contrived uncreative way to scare the audience against their better judgment or lack of horror film experience. A couple times, the setup for a jump scare is scarier than the actual result, such as a bloody tongue plopping down from the ceiling or a demonic ghost girl fidgeting around in the corner of a room. The slight overabundance of jump scares is not the only annoying element of this movie for me, for whenever a ghost or spirit is in a room, the film beats you over the head with this by distorting the picture quality and the sound going wonky. That, too, has always annoyed me when it comes to ghost story found footage movies, since it's not letting the actual moment of paranormal activity be the focus. As each of the characters start either disappearing or dying, the hospital becomes more and more labyrinthine in structure, very much similar to the forest in the Blair Witch Project repeating itself over and over again, thus preventing the protagonists from escaping. Trapped inside this building, they annoyingly don't become more worn down and haggard looking until the death of the black guy. Once they enter the tunnels underneath the building, however, things begin to really pick up in terms of suspense. Jump scares are almost non-existent at this point, with the main element of suspense being the vast, cavernous nature of the tunnel that simply repeats in a straight line for days on end. The chick disappears in a cloud of mist, one of the better and creepier scenes in the movie, in fact, leaving Lance the only member of the group surviving. He slowly goes more and more insane, which makes for a very chilling performance from Sean Rogerson. He finally arrives at the lair of the ward's doctor, who earlier in the movie was described to have performed operations and Josef Mengele-style experiments on the ward's patients. Before being taken by the apparitions of the doctor and his nurses, Lance discovers such occultic paraphernalia as pentagrams and a blood bowl, implying that the doctor had used black magic. Lance is grabbed by the nurses and given a lobotomy, thus ending the film. These last 30 minutes are easily the best and most suspenseful parts of the movie, but it's not enough to save the movie from complete and utter mediocrity. However, complete and utter mediocrity most definitely beats out near complete suckitude, something that the sequel, Grave Encounters 2, embodies with the gusto and spirit of any half-baked horror film from the last 30 years. More often than not, this film will either annoy you, bore you, or piss you off fantastically. For me, all three of those feelings came up at numerous points in the movie. This movie goes a sort of meta route, where the first film was indeed a movie that was released. At first, the movie goes the way of The Human Centipede Part 2, making you believe that the sequel takes place outside the world of the first movie. Very quickly, however, this turns out to not be the case. The sequel is, in fact, not only in the universe of the first movie, but the events of the first movie that were released as a movie actually happened. See, the producer of the in-universe first movie was sued by the families of the actors who were going by the stage names that went missing after the filming of the TV show Grave Encounters, so the producer decided to edit the footage into a movie after adding in a couple cheap visual effects, as he says, as a way to recoup his losses. So yeah, it starts off good and turns to crap quickly. The main characters in this one are a group of film school students, the main guy being an aspiring horror director, and might I add, one of them looking very much like Amy Adams, and that's definitely a good thing because she's not a very good actress in this, who discover the truth about the first film after getting a YouTube message from the spirits in the mental ward. Yeah, I don't know either. Containing the longitude and latitude coordinates for the hospital. So they travel to the hospital in Canada and attempt to find out the truth about Grave Encounters. Yeah, if this sounds confusing, it is, especially since there is the major plot hole of how did the hospital email these kids? Do the spirits have their own computers and YouTube accounts so they can reply to this kid's review of the first movie with footage of Lance Preston crawling around on the ground? Did they do it supernaturally, since the hospital apparently resides in another dimension of reality? Do the spirits even know what modern technology is, considering that the movie was mostly used, that the hospital, I should say, was mostly used many decades before the computer was even invented? Did the spirits assemble the footage from the first movie and send it to the in-universe producer? If not, then how was that footage found? It's all over the place and bogs the movie down in needless confusion. The acting in this one mostly sucks, with the only all-around good performance coming from the returning Sean Rogerson, who has been trapped in the hospital for almost a decade and has since gone completely insane. However, there are two major visual inconsistencies with his character that are incredibly distracting for me. One, to show how long Lance/Sean has been trapped in the building for, he now sports a beard and incredibly long hair. However, the wig is not only really fake looking, but it is also a completely different color from his natural dirty blonde, being jet black. To add to that, his beard is much too short to belong to a man that has been held hostage in a building for a decade with no grooming instruments. And two, since at the end of the first movie he is given a lobotomy, Sean has one blind eye the first time we see him. Every single time we see him after that, which is to say every other scene since he's a major part of the movie from the moment he comes into the picture, his eye alternates between blind and normal color. Another big problem with the movie for me is that it blatantly takes ideas from other, much better movies. First, there's the apology scene from Blair Witch. One of the kids steps into a bathroom, turns the camera towards himself, and begins reciting a last will and testament, very much in the same way that Heather apologized to her and her friends as families near the end of Blair Witch. The second scene is ripping off the cinematography from the climax of Chronicle. In Chronicle, despite also being a found footage movie, the two main characters levitate a whole bunch of cameras into the air so that the movie can do some traditional fight scene camera work. In that movie, it was really cool and inventive. This movie rips off that idea completely, with the spirits of the house levitating a bunch of cameras into the air so that the movie can do traditional camera work and whatnot. Here, it's incredibly uninventive, especially since this movie, Grave Encounters 2, only came out 9 months after Chronicle, lending credence to the theory that the filmmakers saw Chronicle and stole that idea from it. The movie is also riddled with lame CGI and other unconvincing visual effects, making the producer's statement at the end that everything in the movie is fake less of an in-universe lie and more of a hilarious in hindsight admission. However, the absolute worst element in this movie is the ending, which is completely infuriating and will completely negate any reason you may ever have had for liking the main character. The way the story goes is that Sean Rogerson kills one of the characters because the building told him to. Earlier in the movie, we see that there is a set of freestanding red doors chained shut. A portal to the outside world will only open once the movie is finished, which is to say that everyone in the house is dead except for one person. Don't blame me, this is what the house told him. Sean and the main kid, Alex, fight over who will live and who will die, until the house opens up a hilariously bad-looking computer-generated portal, sucking Sean into it, briefly turning the film into the unmade sequel to Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, Full House, the movie. Insert rim shot here. Upon Sean's being eaten by a fucking building, Alex realizes that he must finish the film. This leads him straight down the nearest path to Assholeville by violently bludgeoning the only other character left, his love interest throughout the film, Jennifer, with the camera, quarantine/the lax exorcism style, until her head is caved in and she is fucking dead. Despite it being an actually really cool looking makeup effect, it completely destroys any reason you would ever find the Alex character likable. Throughout the movie up until now, he was kind of a selfish dick when it came to filming and making his movies. However, he still cared for his friends and wanted them to get out alive with him. The moment it turns out that this isn't possible, he turns on his girlfriend quicker than Chris Jericho after wrestling Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 19. Once it became apparent that Alex was gonna kill her, I threw my hands up in the air and loudly shouted at the movie for being an asshole for doing this. By so spontaneously derailing the character with less notice than a Vince Russo swerve, it drags the movie down so far below what it would have gotten had the completely unnecessary twist of Alex actually being the biggest douche in the Omniverse not been in there, that it makes the movie completely unrewatchable. Not that you'd want to watch it again, since the rest of the movie before that is really not that good, as you could probably tell. Overall, with the Grave Encounters movies, we've got 2 films that range throughout each of their running times from alright to magnificently stupid, neither of which you'd ever really want to watch again after finishing them. And that's considering you aren't cursing at the screen at what's going on during the respective films. The first movie is mostly just mediocre with a pretty good climax and ending, while the second film is almost completely bad the entire time. As mentioned many words ago, I'm not too fond of ghost movies in general, let alone found footage ghost movies, and neither film in the Grave Encounters series will change that perspective anytime soon. Subbreak out.